Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel and happy Friday. Another week has disappeared, so I thought I'd pop by and we'd create a little card, something just simple that I often do if I just want a little play. So I've grabbed my border acrylic block. It doesn't matter which acrylic block you use. So I've got a piece of Pink Frog smooth card, and it's 3.5 inches by 7 inches. I've then got a black mat that is 3 3/4 inches by 7 1/4, and then a card blank 4.5 by 8, just to give me, so you could have it that way if you wished, or you can have it that way. So it's entirely up to you. So let's just take that piece of card, and I've got my acrylic block. I'm just going to do something nice and simple. So I'm going to take Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink and Wilted Violet. I don't need the card at the moment. So I'm going to apply the Salty Ocean and just apply that just to my acrylic block. And if you just turn your ink pad a little bit as you apply it, you'll end up with less edges, less square pieces. But don't worry if you've got square elements and it's showing as square bits, that's not a problem. Because then when we add some water, those lines will disappear. Now, say you've got a little bit that you think, no, it's a little bit too much, you know, there's got too much lines. Just take your finger and just sort of scribble, just so that you get rid of those harsh lines. With you adding water, it shouldn't really be a problem. So, I don't know what that is on there. We'll take our card and then just turn the acrylic block just like so. And then it does its own thing. It starts to move. That's the best bit, when it moves like that. I like watching it. But you can see where it's very dotty here. If you wanted to, you could leave it like that so you get those dots. I want a little bit of a smoother feel. So just, there we go, just press. Doesn't matter if you've got some of those dots, there we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it there for a few seconds. I can see a little bit's gone off the acrylic block. Let's just bring this down so you can see. There you go. And I'm just allowing it just to grab hold of the card. Now, if I didn't press as much, you'd end up with some little white gaps, etc., which is also a lovely effect. If you just leave it on there a few seconds, it means that not all the ink, because when you lift it, it sort of goes, it moves. So if I just leave it there for a little bit, it won't move as much. The longer you can leave it, the less it moves. It doesn't bother me that it moves. It adds to the effect. But the longer you leave it like this, that is the result that you will get. But if I lift it now, where it's very fluid, it will move. So I'm just giving that some time just to grab hold of the card and not move as much. So you can turn and then just lift, and you get a beautiful background. It just works beautifully. And if you want to add a few little drops of water, that will then react. Let me lift that up so you can see that is then reacting. So let's leave that there doing its own thing. I've now got another piece of card that is exactly the same size. So I've got some ink on there. So let's just give that a little bit more water. And then I can add this as the second generation print just onto the card. And the second generation print is often just as nice as the first generation print. Now, if I don't press, if I press, you closes together. If I don't press, you get more open areas. So we won't leave that to sit as long, and then we can move some of the colour. There we go. You could even have a 3rd generation print that would be even paler, which would be lovely. Again, I can just add a little bit more water, and then you can just allow it to do its thing, and that'll be a lovely background as well, something a little bit different to the first print. So if we just leave that there, sometimes we're in so much of a rush that the background, we don't let them do what they need to do, and you end up with a lovely background. Now if I grab some kitchen roll, whilst it's still wet, you've still got some control. So if there's something you don't like if you don't want it too dark here, well, just block that, and you don't end up with that dark edge. It's exactly the same as here, but I quite like that. I like some of the darker bits because it makes a more interesting background. But you can, whilst it's still wet, you've still got some effect on the background. So I'm going to leave that one, goodness knows where, because I've got no space. Let's leave it there. And then we'll bring in this one. Now, if I let this dry naturally, where you've got it here, where it's really dark, that would dry really dark. And also, the card would dry flat. Obviously, with me doing a video, you can't sit there, you know, while I sing to you, which you don't want anyway, because I'm completely tone deaf. But if I leave this to dry naturally, you'd need me to sing to you for an hour, and you'd probably nod off. So we won't do that. So what we're going to do is we'll give it a dry. I've allowed it to react. As you can see, it's reacted beautiful with the little spritz of water that I've added afterwards. You could also go in now and spritz again. So that works beautifully as well, by absolutely spritzing again. So I'm going to give that a little bit of a dry now, just so that we can work on there. And obviously when you dry the card, it's going to bend and curl. That's natural. So let's just heat from the back as well. And then back again. And heat from the back. So keep heating from the back as you heat from the front. There we go. And yes, I can still see some wet areas. I can still see that if I just move that, you can see that it's still got some wet areas there. And I can just blot off the excess. There we go. And now you've got a nice simple background. It just works beautifully. I absolutely love that. So the hardest bit is deciding whether you want it this way or you want it that way. But we'll see where it takes us. So what I'm going to do now, let's pull out some white. Let me make sure I have got detail white. I have some of my embossing powders for that long. It's so easy for me to not remember. I'm then going to use a stencil. So I'm going to use 181, which is deciduous. So we'll use that one, which is well used. But let me just bring in this other background. This is the 2nd generation background. That's as good as the 1st generation. It's just beautiful. Absolutely love that. But just wanted to show you that. Now what I'm going to do is use my anti-static bag. And I've got that many cables everywhere. It's quite difficult to not knock something. There we go. So I'm going to wipe over with my anti-static bag. Let's wipe over with the anti-static bag. And you can see I've dried the ink because that's not come off on the anti-static bag. I want a piece of cotton dry foam or a sponge, anything that will work. And then I'm going to add, like I don't know which way I'm putting the stencil. Oh dear me. So I'm going to take my Versamark ink and I'm going to use my cotton dry foam or sponge, mainly because if you use the sponge and the cotton dry foam, you can get into the crevices. If I just press my ink pad directly onto the stencil, you won't get into the little crevices. You'll miss the crevices. So just making sure that get into some of those crevices. And you can hold your stencil in place with some low tack tape, should that be easier for you. And you can see I don't rush, I just take my time. Just pressing onto that sticky ink pad, the Versamark watermark stamp pad. And then I can just lift this up and see absolutely nothing, because obviously I've got that ink on there, so it's quite dark. I can't actually see anything. I can't see whether I've got anything on there or not. It's hilarious, so it will be really interesting viewing for you. Let me see, I've got some copy of paper. There's something on there, but I can hardly see. So let's use our white embossing powder. And just sprinkle that off. There you go. You can now see something. Let's see if there's any more. And if you've got some sticking where you don't particularly want it to, just remove that. Yes, I think that's quite nice. I just wanted a little bit of detail on there. And what's hilarious is I've just tipped the embossing powder just onto my non-stick craft sheet and not into the container. So funny. I literally missed the pot. Oh dear. So I didn't tip it back into the pot. I just tipped it onto the non-stick craft sheet, like you do. It's Friday. My brain isn't working. So let's grab the heat tool. And then we can't pick the card up. We're just letting that heat tool just heat up. Now, that's why I wanted the card dry. I didn't want it wet, because even if I'd have used the anti-static bag, if it's still got some moisture in there, this embossing powder would just stick everywhere. And we'll just heat. There we go. You know when you sort of look at the embossing and you think, I have done white, haven't I? Not clear. So it now gives me some white areas that coordinate with the white open areas in the card, and it adds brightness to that card. There we go. Now just remember you've got some heat in that card. Don't go and put your hands straight on it. So let's just bend the card a little bit. There we go. Lovely. So if you wanted to, you could just leave it like that and just add a sentiment It's just lovely. It's such a lovely background. So I want to add my Clematis. So I'm going to take my Clematis, which is Clematis TE5. We'll use this stamp set. And just roll them back. Don't stretch your stamps. Take our acrylic block, and then we want it so there's no embossing powder on there because it's just everywhere and all gritty. So let's take a piece of card, and then we'll take our Nocturne VersaFine Clair ink. That means I can watercolour the colour on the floral. Without that ink moving. Just take our floral. And you can have the floral any which way you want. The way I've got it on the packaging or the opposite way. There we go. So it's entirely up to you. I always think I've grabbed everything and then I always forget something. So I just need the scissors. So we'll just take our scissors, and then we'll just cut around the Clematis, and I'm going to leave a little bit of the white area. And I'm just actually looking out the window now, and it's actually sun shining. I can't actually quite believe it. There we go. The white area will just make it pop a little bit. And cutting out will just give me a little bit of dimension. If you didn't want dimension, you could stamp directly onto the card. I do like a little bit of dimension. Just cut. And I love this floral when it's cut out. I'm just holding the edge because I'm trying not to place my fingers onto the actual Clematis itself, because that ink, you can blot it, but it'll still be a little wet. So you don't want to pick that up all over your fingers, because then you end up with a mess. So you can have it either way, but I'm going to have it like this. It's going to go here like this. So I'm going to add a little bit of colour, and I've even pulled the colouring pencils out. I'm going to use my Inktense because they work beautifully. And as you all know by now, I haven't got a swatch. I don't do a swatch. I just look at the colours, and that's me. Which one are you? Thistle, so we'll have Thistle, which is one of the new colours. And what colour are you? I don't want a red violet, so we won't have that one. And everything just gets chucked on the floor. So just go into my tin. Let's have, what colour are you? Deep rose. This is why you should read the colours, because sometimes they're definitely not what you want. Amethyst, yes. And let's have a little bit of blue. So what colour are you? I'll do. And it's a good idea if, like me, you haven't got swatches. I haven't got swatches because there's nowhere to store them. But a lot of people do beautiful swatches. I just test it on the card before I actually go to work. So, that's okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I just test it on the card I'm using. So what I've got is Amethyst 0735, Thistle 0720 and Iris Blue 0900, and these are my Inktense pencils. So let's bring this in, and it doesn't take much colouring, the floral doesn't. So I'm going to use the darkest colour, which in my case is the Thistle 0720. And I'm just going to add, so don't go by what it looks on here, because it's often very different when you add the water. So just add the Thistle. And then I'll take my second colour, which is the Amethyst. I won't add the blue yet, which is the Amethyst. And I'm just using that circular motion, pencil to pencil, as if I was when I'm blending, say, Prismacolors or Polychromos. But these I will add water, because then they come to life. And this is what I love about the Inktense pencils. They're so forgiving. But you do need to start with a clean brush, which Tracy rarely starts with a clean brush, because now it's blue. I told you I very rarely start with a clean brush. Right. So I can take a little bit of water. I've got my kitchen roll, should I have too much water on the brush. And I'm going to sort of push down into the colour. And it just starts to come to life. Where did I put that water? So just push that colour, the darkest colour, just down into. And what you end up with is a lovely touch of colour. And it comes to life, but I like to add a little bit more oomph to it. So there we go. So it comes to life when you add the water. What I like to do then is I like to pick up a bit of the pigment from the pen. Now these are not woodless, so you have to be careful. You can't go in with lots of water, as it'll go up your pencil. So just be aware of that. But I do like to pick up the really neat pigment. Not adding any more water to that pencil. Just picking up the neat pigment from that pencil. So just picking up the neat dark colour. And if I pick up any water, take off the excess, just so that you don't flood your pencil. You don't want to flood that pencil. You're just picking up that neat colour, just so it's got a little bit more oomph. If you don't like your colour too rich, that's absolutely fine. Don't do what I'm doing, and you can keep it quite pale. I just like to add a little bit more depth. So then I'm going to pick up my paler colour, which is the Amethyst. And then I'm just going to blend that out a little bit more, just to give it a little bit more again oomph with that colour. And then if I dry these, it will be permanent. And I'm going to dry these two colours before I add the blue, because then I can layer that blue on the top. So let's just give that a dry. just to make that permanent. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit. I'm going to treat myself to a new chair, I think, because this one makes my back ache. So I'm going to pick up a bit of the blue, which is the Iris Blue 0900. And you can see I've got a little bit on the brush. I can see even. And I'm just going to add a little bit of that Iris Blue. And that just gives it even more oomph. Just to add that little bit more water. So I'm using very little water just to pick up a little bit more of that colour. And it really does make a difference. There we go. Now if I bring this up, you can see where I've added that sort of blue. It just gives it a bit more power. A bit more strength and colour. Now if you don't like to make it, you know, so it's quite so strong in colour, again, you can stop at any stage of the process. There we go. And then I can add some touches of white. So let's add the touches of white. Oh, I'll just test it and then put it back. What am I like? So I can just add little touches of white just to the card. And because it's dry, it's allowing me to add that. You can even add some little dots, which sometimes just lift everything and give it a little bit of vibrancy. So then you've got your floral. So what I'm going to do, so that it just doesn't get lost, I'm going to use the die I did for All and Create. And I'm just going to use the cutout piece, like so. Now my new stamps are available from my website, and I'll leave the link in the description. But now I can add this here just to lift that a little bit. So I'm going to place this down first. You can even, let me just do this now. You can even, let me show you. I can even add, let's add a circle. You can take a circle. This is about 2¼ inch circle. And you can just draw around like so. So you've got the circle. I like to show you different ways you can change things up. So then we've got the circle, and then which colour do I want to go? Think about it, Tracy. Let's grab some white, my white pencil. So I can take my white Prisma pencil, or you could use like a charcoal. Oh, what am I like? Pastel pencil. I couldn't think my word then. You could use a pastel pencil or some pastels and just shade it white. But I'm going to add a little bit of the white Prisma pencil. And I'm just layering that colour very lightly. Just over the circle. So I'm not pressing on the card too hard. I'm just lightly layering that colour. And it's not obliterating the colour underneath. just adding a little bit of that white. I'm just trying to show you how you can do different things with one card design. So I'm just sort of adding the white. So I'm making this more white by adding this Prisma pencil. And can you see where my fingers are on the pencil? That stops me from pressing down too hard and breaking down the fibres of the card too quickly. It means I'm laying down that colour without pressing too hard. And it's just showing you that you can keep that colour, but I'm adding a little bit of white just so this pops a little bit more. And I can continue adding that colour. And this is what I love about creating. You can take it whichever way you wish to take it. So now what I'm showing you is you've created your background, and look how you can change it. I can keep this bit here darker, and then I can go in with a little bit more pressure. So just go in with a little more pressure. And again, it's totally changed. I'll show you how it's totally changed, because if you look at the 6 here, you can see how dark it was before, and now I've added the white pencil. But you've still got that mottled look underneath. So bring my finger down a bit more now. So I bring my finger down onto the pencil. I can press a little bit harder. And you can see that I've now changed that just so that it pops a little bit more against that white area, which I just love it. I can also add a little bit of shading underneath the circle, like so. I'm just showing you how you change things. So we'll just grab our brush, and I'm well aware that we've got the oxide underneath, so don't add too much moisture, and we can just add a little bit of that just to give it a little bit of shading just underneath there. And now what I'm going to do is take the Clematis again. I need another piece of card. But you've instantly changed that. So if you wanted to, you could just it's always the last stamp I go to that I want. It's hilarious every single time. If you wanted to, you could just add, say you didn't want any florals at all, you could just add the bird inside the circle, like so, looking at the numbers, little sentiment, done. So there's always ways to change it once you've got your background. I love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp another floral now, which I've just got in black and white. So I'm just going to ink that up with my Nocturne ink. I've got the Nocturne ink in my shop as well if you need the Nocturne ink. There we go. And then just stamp our floral. I love how the circle is now white and it just pops against. Oh, just love it. Where's my scissors? So we'll just cut out our floral again, moving the card rather than moving my scissors. It's just far easier to move the card rather than those scissors. It helps with the flow of your cutting, and also making sure that you haven't got too much card sort of in your way that you're trying to cut from. So this is why I always say to you sometimes, just play around with what you're doing. And from one card, you can create lots of ideas. Like I've shown you, you can just add the bird if you wish. You don't have to add florals. I mean, I love my florals anyway. And I love pieces that I can cut out and just add some dimension. And I love when you start a project going one way and you can change it so many times along the process. I love doing that. I may even get in the garden today because it does look beautiful out there. Don't do as I did then. I placed my hand onto the actual stamped image, and you're going to pick up a little bit of ink, which you don't really want to carry to your card. So if you have done that like I have done, just give your fingers a little bit of a wipe, just to make sure you've got no ink residue. So what I can do now is I can add the black one and offset it with this one here, just so that it pops a little bit more. I love that. So I'm going to take my black one and just add a little bit of dimension to that. I can also pinch the petals. Let's pinch them. If you've got dexterity problems, just wet your card a bit and that'll make the bending a little bit easier. So let's add that there. So that's not got quite as much dimension. And this one, I'll add one blob, then two blobs, or try to, just so this has got a little bit more dimension, which is really easy because everything's trying to move and you're fighting with. There we go. I'm a bit of a faffy, just so that you can see. I just love that. So we'll just grab our wording. So I'll just grab the Clematis wording. Just grab a little acrylic block. We'll just, I love it because stamps offer, you know, you can create embellishments from them, you can create backgrounds from them, you've got your focal image from them. Just love them. So just add the Clematis wording. And just, I get into the habit of placing that back, mainly because the more I use them, I end up losing because I just don't place them back. Let's just cut that out. I always use my bigger scissors to cut the sentiment out. And I'm just going to add a faux black mat. Just to set that off. I'm just doing that on a piece of card, mainly because I don't have to clean my non-stick craft sheet then. Bring this in so I can then add my Clematis wording here, like so. Oh, and you know what Tracy's done? Did she leave the lid off the glue? Oh, I'm okay. Look at the state of the glue. Why is my glue like that? No idea. Not that I'm very fussy. So let me just pick that up. Don't think there's enough glue just on that end there. We'll just add the Clematis there, just so that you can see that. Just love that, and I love the numbers underneath. I'm then going to, let's remove the Clematis. From the acrylic block. Just place that back. There we go. And then I just want my little bird from the New Beginnings stamp set, TE4. Let's grab that little bird. Got a little bit of card here. That's it. Stamp our little bird. Lovely. So let's take our little bird, and I can cut this out because now it becomes a little embellishment. Just love that. Just cut our beards out. So I think any orders that I receive this weekend, so from now, Friday until Monday, I think I'll add one of my handmade cards to the parcel. I won't write in the card, I'll just send you a card, then you can use it as you wish. So yes, I think I'll send a handmade card to anyone who places an order this weekend from now, Friday until Monday. Just as something a little bit different. There we go. Cut our little feet out now. Just need to be a little bit careful because we don't want to make him footless. I was going to say footloose and fancy free then. Don't know why that came into my head. The things that come into my head are very strange. So I've got my little bird. And again, really, you should let the ink dry, but I can just add a little bit more of the white touches. And then I can decide where I want my little bird. Do I want him on the top here, or do I want him sort of peering in? See, after all, I probably didn't need his little legs, but there you go. And I can see you saying, Tracy, I've cut the legs out. Don't hide the legs. But before I place him down, I'm always having a play. But there's something for me. I love having the birds, maybe I'm a bit odd, facing the flowers. So just place him down there. Use your scissors, Tracy. Everything is trying to move around, which is because I've used my pin flare. There you go. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shading underneath his little feet. There we go. Where's my little bit of shading underneath the feet? I'm then going to add some white splatters. And always make sure that when you're using a Posca pen, a Posca paint pen, that you've pumped the pen, you've pressed it onto your non-stick craft sheet, and that it's flowing. Give it a good shake. You want it flowing. Now, I've dried the Distress Oxide inks, so I'm hoping that then, therefore, the splatters won't react too much with the ink below, because I've dried it in the moisture. I mean, obviously it still reacts, so those whites may be toned with the colour, but sometimes I don't mind that. Then I'm going to add a little bit of shading just under here. That's just a little bit of water. And just blend that out. We've got a little bit of shading under there. I'm then going to add this to my black mat, which was 1/4 of an inch bigger. So the actual card piece we worked on was 3.5 by 7. Now I'm going to add glue to the centre, mainly because, you know, my card's worked really hard. It's got a lot of layers on there. So let me just pick that up. Just pick that up. And make sure that you press in the middle where you've added that adhesive, because you don't want that card lifting up in the centre. You want to make sure that it makes good contact, and just spend a couple of seconds, and then you can move the beard like I've just done. Go back to where you were, thank you. There we go. Just so that you can see that. And then I'm going to add that to my card blank, which always sets that off beautifully, just beautifully. So we'll just now just press there a little bit, just so that makes good contact. To our white card blank. Again, I'm going to lift that up because it's easier just to get that looking straight. There we go. So just press that down. And then there is your card finished. I'm really pleased with that. I love the background. I just think it's so beautiful. I absolutely love it. And then when we go back to our second generation print, you've now got this second generation print, which is just as beautiful. Look how the white area there, just love that, just as beautiful. So a 2 for 1 there. So I hope you've enjoyed the step-by-steps. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I shall see you all soon. Bye for now.